Story 1. The Lady on the Road. My mom and I were driving to Las Vegas. We were just passing Barstow on I-15. It was right around high noon. It was very, very hot. There was not a cloud in the sky. We were on this long stretch of road. There's a lot of space between cars. 1 minute we see nothing ahead of us, and then all of a sudden, a woman is walking across the highway, right in front of our vehicle. Mom swerved and just barely missed her. She pulled off on the shoulder, and we looked behind us, and we see this lady go all the way across the highway, including the westbound traffic. She then turned around and walked all the way back across again, each time nearly getting clipped by an unsuspecting oncoming car. At one point, a semi-truck barely missed hitting her head-on, literally one step away. Each step she took was steady and confident, looking ahead of her, never batting an eye to any oncoming traffic. She was barefoot and walking on boiling hot asphalt with zero sense of urgency. My mom called 911 and we were directed to the highway patrol. They tell us they've received numerous reports and they have an officer heading that way. My mom hung up and slowly reversed down the shoulder to get a better look and to see if this woman was okay. As we get to a spot directly behind her now, she's crossed the highway and is now right in front of our vehicle. And I'll never forget this. The woman slowly turns her head and looks right at us, and is now slowly but steadily walking towards our car. She is ghost white in every way. A white nightgown, pale, dry, wrinkled skin, white hair, and the palest blue-gray eyes I have ever seen. She almost looked like a Walking Dead version of Rose Dawson from Titanic. I was in the passenger seat, which was on the shoulder. When my mom made eye contact, she froze. Absolutely shut down. The woman just kept walking towards my door. I could see her eyes make contact with mine. It looked as if she was blind and lifeless, like she couldn't see me at all, but like she was seeing through my soul instead. I went cold immediately, and she reached for my door handle. I remember screaming, and my mom punched the gas. We peeled out of there, and in the back window, we watched this woman as we sped off. She just started walking the road again. A mile down the highway, we called Highway Patrol again to see what had happened and if they had found this woman. They didn't have a clue what we were talking about and said they had received no reports of a woman walking on the highway. My mom, still to this day, doesn't remember what happened between the time we reversed and the time we sped out of there. I have no idea what happened that day, except I witnessed something weird. Story 2. See you later. As a child visiting my grandmother's house, whenever I left the house, I'd wave to the next door neighbor, Dave, who always sat in the bay window looking out at the sea. They lived right on the coast, off the North Sea. We never really talked, just a little wave before I'd get in the car. One time I was leaving my grand's house. I'm at the front of my mom, who stopped in the door to talk to my gran. So I head down the steps towards the gate. I turn back, and I see him in the window, big smile as usual, waving at me. I give him a wave back. He stands up, gives me a thumbs up, and wanders towards the back of the room. My mom comes walking down the steps and asks, "Who are you waving at?" And I replied, "Dave." To this day I remember my mom's face. She just went white, but didn't say anything to me. A few weeks later, she worked up the courage to tell me that David died a few days prior to my visit with Gran. I don't really believe in ghosts, but I know I saw him. I can still picture his striped gray sweater, him waving and getting up out of his chair. There was no one else in the house. He lived alone. Story 3. Weird House. I have 3 stories that really stand out for me as far as explainability. They all involve doors. Story 1. In my teenage years, I lived in a townhome owned by my then stepdad, who freely admitted he thought the place was haunted. He was self-employed as a sound equipment installer. He would often come and go during the day. My mom worked a steady 9 to 5 at a law firm. It was summer break, and I wasn't driving yet. I spent a lot of time outside. This was before everyone had cell phones, really. So I'd take a cordless phone outside with me. I went outside one day and realized I'd forgot the phone. When I tried to go back in, the door was locked. Not the handle, which I may have written off as something I'd accidentally done on my way out, but the deadbolt was turned. The handle moved freely, but the deadbolt was engaged. The deadbolt requires a key to lock from the outside. I didn't have a key to this. I stood there, puzzled for a few minutes. No one else was home. The only other entrance to the house was a set of sliding doors in the basement. They were always locked. What just happened? I kept trying to open the door, before finally resigning myself to borrow the neighbor's phone and calling my stepdad. He was in town, and after asking me 1,000 times if I was sure, he finally came over and unlocked the door. I spent the rest of the afternoon inside, trying to replicate what had happened. I slammed the door shut so many times in an attempt to get the deadbolt to wobble and lock itself. It never did, and honestly, I didn't expect it to. The second story. Same townhouse, but I'm driving now, and I often stayed late at school, as I was in theater and had practices. This afternoon, I had about 30 minutes between class and practice, so I drove home to grab a snack. When I got there, my mom was at work, and my stepdad's van was gone, so I assumed he was gone as well. The door to the house was locked. When you walk into this house, right in front of you, to the left is the kitchen, and to the right is my bedroom. In the middle is a staircase going downstairs. I unlocked the door, I came inside, and I turned into the kitchen with my back to the staircase. As I was making a sandwich, I heard someone downstairs. I turned back around and the staircase door was open. The stairwell light was on, and someone was clearly downstairs. I knew for a fact that the door was closed when I walked in the house, but I rationalized that because my stepdad's van was a cargo van, it wasn't uncommon for someone to borrow it to haul things, so I assumed that he must be home, and his van was borrowed. I went to the top of the stairs, and I stood there, looking down, eating my sandwich. I almost said something. It all was almost out of my mouth, but something stopped me. I still don't know why I didn't yell, "Hey, I'm home!" down the stairs. Instead, I turned around and left. And I left the front door unlocked because my stepdad was home, right? When I got back from practice, my mom was mad. My stepdad got home around 5 to a completely unlocked house. He had a lot of expensive equipment in the basement. I always remembered to lock the door, and I tried to explain to her what I'd seen, that he had definitely been home at 4, but she said he wasn't. I swore he was. Something was in that house with me. My brother believed me, but my mom and stepdad never did. Story 3. At this point in my life, I'm in my early 20s. I'm living in a rundown trailer with 2 young kids. It's a 2-bedroom trailer. I've gave both of the bedrooms to the kids, and I sleep on the couch in the living room, which gave me direct line of sight to the front door. I put the kids in bed around 9 p.m. I always lock the door. Always. I still to this day clearly remember locking both the handle and the deadbolt, checking to make sure they were fully locked before I went to take a shower. Eventually I fell asleep. I woke up suddenly around 3 a.m. on high alert. As my eyes cleared, I started thinking sensibly. I realized I was staring into the street. My front door was wide open. It wasn't like open to crack or just a little bit. It was fully open. Plus, I had a glass storm door. It was fully closed and locked, blocking any wind that we might have had. I got up and I walked to the door to close it, and that's when I lost it. The deadbolt was still in the locked position, fully turned to lock. Have you ever had one of those moments where you swear you have ice in your veins? That's what it was for me. I've never felt that scared in my life. I knew I had locked that door, and yet here I was, staring me in the face. I didn't sleep without the lights on for a week. Story 4. Mr. Fix-It. We live in an old home that's built in the late 1800s. The home was originally built to be a single-family home, but in the late 1950s, it was converted to 2 units. We moved into the house in the early 1990s. After it had been empty for many years, we immediately began noticing strange things happening all around us. Every morning at approximately 4:30 a.m., we'd hear what sounded like a radio talk show coming from the kitchen. We could faintly hear someone shuffling around, but we'd get up to investigate and we'd find nothing. It was obvious that whoever it was a male getting up early to go to work. As far as we could tell, this person also did not care for my husband. My husband took great pride in his tools and had set up a small workshop in one of the old bedrooms. This did not please the old man that haunted our house. He would toss the tools around. They'd usually end up in the floor. Sometimes his tools would go missing. However, he does like me. I had an old Ringer washing machine in the basement that I loved very much. It was acting up, and I jokingly remarked to the ghost to please fix my washing machine. And he did. My refrigerator door needed some adjustments. My husband, the great procrastinator, could never find the time to fix it. All I had to do was ask the ghost, and my door was fixed. My husband and I had a huge fight one day, as most couples do occasionally. But evidently the ghost thought that he was going to harm me because he grabbed my husband. He didn't hurt him, but he grabbed him. We have a shower in the basement, and when you go down there, you can often smell roses. Sometimes you can even smell someone baking, mostly brownies, or some type of chocolate cookie. So we know that there is a woman who is also here. Upstairs, in what used to be the nursery, there's a little boy. He likes to play with my dog and my cat. I think there's also a man who's in there too. My 3-year-old granddaughter entered the room because she thought my husband was in there. And then she said, "You're not my grandpa." And then she left. When we asked who she was talking to, she said, "Oh, the man in there. He's not grandpa." She's afraid to go into my kitchen because she says there's too many ghosts. Things are continuously missing or moved. I even took my dentures once. I still can't find them. Thankfully, I had dental insurance and could get a new pair. They don't harm us, but sometimes they do things that are irritating, like moving or stealing things. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the stories. If you did, give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. Bye!